Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. This is going to be a scavenger hunt picks my next read, which is perfect timing because I kind of wrapped up both books that I've been reading over my spring break. We're about middle of the week, middle of my spring break. And so I needed to pick something new. I've been kind of burnt out on the books that I've been picking for Realmathon. And so I'm hoping that doing a scavenger hunt will help me pick something that I can be excited about reading. I got this idea from Brittany Loves Reading, whose video I will link down below. She got the scavenger hunt questions, and the scavenger hunt questions that I'm going to be using were created by Chelsea Zhao. And so I will also link her video down below because on hers, she does include all of the questions from the prompt. I am going to do my own little twist on it though. So instead of going in order from 1 through 10 to find my next book, I am going to start with the first question on the scavenger hunt and the last question on the scavenger hunt. But from 2 to 9, prompts 2 to 9, I actually have written down and I'm going to just draw them from random. I thought that this was the best way to do it since I've watched both Brittany and Chelsea's videos and I didn't want to kind of already have like books picked out in my mind. So I thought that the best way to do it, and just to put a little bit of a twist on it, is to kind of like draw them from random, which who doesn't love to pick prompts out of a jar? So let's get started. So the very first prompt is the last 5-star read, and the title of that book has to have the same number of words from the next book that I pick. All right, so the last 5-star read that I have actually is right here. So I read this one on Kindle Unlimited, but I loved it so much I ended up ordering it from the author's website, and so I got it signed. And that is Ravenminder by Lindsay Cummings. You can see that she signed it, and it came with a character print and a little like parchment of the inscription that she wrote, and it also came with a raven's feather. So like when you open the package, this was on top, and then when you lifted that up, the parchment and the feather were on top. So I thought that was a really neat touch that she included. But yeah, I read this last month in February for Tortured Readers Book Club and just had a fabulous time with it. Can I tell you what this book is about now? Not really, because this was a 5-star vibes kind of book. But what I can tell you is that our main female character, she is a Ravenminder of her kingdom. So basically she just, kind of lives with the ravens that carry messages. And then she gets recruited to be like the royal Ravenminder, and things go from there. And she has the 2 princes, just kind of like a little bit of a love triangle that is starting between her and like the 2 princes, the 2 brother princes. And so I had a really great time with it. There are 2 novellas that come after this one. That's like, one is told from each of the princes' points of view that I also ordered and got signed. And from her Instagram, she's currently working on the sequel to this book. So I'm really excited. But anyways, so the number of words in the title. So Ravenminder, I've seen it written both ways, as 1 word and as 2, but since it's on 2 lines, I'm going to count this as 2 words. So I need to pick a book that has 2 words in the title. That should not be too hard. And so of course, now that I'm looking, I cannot find it. And I'm not going to count the word "the" on the top because I always feel like "the" is a word. Okay. Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. So Crooked Kingdom, this book destroyed me. This is one of the books that I did tab. I tried to be a tabbing girly, but I don't feel like I am. I don't enjoy the process that much. I like looking at the tabs, but I don't like putting the tabs in. But this book was, I read this book a few years ago. It is the sequel to Six of Crows. And I think out of like this whole Grishaverse, I think this is my favorite book out of, you know, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, Six of Crows duology, and then the King of Scars duology that follows this one. This one I think is my favorite. All right, so let's pick the next prompt. Just gonna pick one out. And it says, pick an element from the cover and find that word in the title. Okay, well, I've got a crow. There's not a whole lot on this title. There's like a crown and like a city, like it's really small, like a cityscape or kind of like buildings. But like definitely the crow is the most prominent. And I think that's funny because like the first book was Ravenminder and now I've got this crow. And I think random word, find that word has to be in the title. I think like a crow, I'm going to, I mean, I guess I could just pick Six of Crows, but I want to kind of like vary, you know, have some variety in it. So I'm going to pick actually, this one down here, King of Ravens by Claire Sager. I know that crows and ravens are two different types of birds, but I'm just going with like blackbird. And that's the first book that pops into mind. So this is a very bird themed scavenger hunt so far, but this is the Fairy Loot edition. It's absolutely stunning. And I actually read this maybe last week or so. This was another Tortured Readers Book Club pick for this month, and I had a really good time with it. I know that this book got a lot of mixed reviews, but I really enjoyed like the character development and like the slow pace plot, which I typically do not enjoy, but this one was done really well. Okay, so let's see what our next prompt is for our next book. The sticky part of the sticky notes is really really sticky. So it says, if the book is in a series, pick a standalone, or if it is a standalone, pick a series. So King of Ravens is the first book in a new series. So book one is the only one that is out, but I do on Goodreads, there is like a title announced for book two, which I think is coming out in January of next year. So this is in a series. So I need to pick a standalone. And I don't have a whole lot of standalones because I am a series lover at heart. So let me see. Here we go. This one down here, I picked Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I have not read this one yet. I picked this book up last month as part of my birthday book shopping haul. So I can't really tell you much about it, except that I know that it's about to come out on Netflix, I think, with Sally Field. So I need to read this soon so that I can watch. I don't know. I think it's a movie that's coming out, but I love Sally Field. So I think that I'm really going to enjoy the movie, but I always like to read the book first. Because I feel like when you read or watch the movie before reading the book is just not as enjoyable, in my opinion. So I want to read the book first. Okay. Next it says, use the author's initials to find an author with one of those initials. Okay. So I've got 3, S, V, and P. So I need to find an author that has either an S, a V, or a P in their name as the first letter of their name. Well, the first book that sticks out to me is Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn. This is the first book in the original Mistborn trilogy. This is a really fun series where they use metal as their magic system. And so if you are Mistborn, then you are able to ingest different metals and get different magical powers from the metal depending on what you ingest. So I've read the first 2 books in the original trilogy, so I need to finish the last one and then read the second era quartet, because there's 4 in that one. All right, let's see what is going to be our next prompt. All right, pick a character's name and find an author with the same name. Okay, this is going to be a hard one because I know that the main characters, oh, I think I might know. Hang on. The author has to have the name, not the character. Ooh, this might be hard. I might have to pick a different. Okay, we have Kel. The only Kel I can think of is Kel Carpenter, and I don't have any. Then I might have to pick a different book for this one because the characters in this name are unusual. And I don't think I'm going to find an author that has any of the names. Okay, so please hold. Okay, I'm back. So I put Mistborn away and picked up Soul Searching by Lila Sage. I figured I probably have better luck with a contemporary book as opposed to a fantasy book in finding a character name that matches an author's name. And I think that this was a good one because the very first word on the synopsis says Collins Cartwright. And I do have a book. I'm going to pull this one because it's my favorite one in the series that I currently own. And that is Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. This is the really pretty deluxe editions that they came out with. And I'm so excited. I just saw that they are coming out with the Sunrise on the Reaping one that matches this set is going to be coming out in October. So I definitely will be picking that up so that it can finish my set. But yes, Suzanne Collins will work for this book. Like I said, this one is my favorite out of the whole series, aside that I currently own, because I say that because Sunrise on the Reaping is actually my favorite. Which funnily enough, I'm saying this as I'm on spring break. Sunrise on the Reaping came out last year while I was on spring break, and I read it from beginning to end. On the day it came out, I dropped my son off at school because he and I had different spring breaks last year because we're in 2 different school districts, and dropped him off at school, bought the book on my Kindle, read it, finished it just in time to go pick him up from school. So yeah, what a time. So I cannot wait to see the movie, but also to pick up the deluxe edition of that one in October. All right, what will be our next book? All right, using the blurbs, the acknowledgments, or dedication for a name, and find an author or character with the same name. So 2 similar prompts in a row, but that's okay because this time I just have to look at the acknowledgments or the blurbs. No blurbs. This might bite me in the bottom. Well, I've got some blurbs here in the back of the book because like I'm not seeing any acknowledgments because like the very last page says end of book 2. But I do have dedication. So let's take a look and see. So I have Stephen King is the only author name on here because the rest of the blurbs are from magazines. But I also have Jane and Michael Collins, which are her parents, and her in-laws, Dixie and Charles Pryor. And so the author or character has to have the same name. So we can do Stephen or King or Jane, Michael Collins, Dixie, Charles Pryor. Okay, see, my first, it has to be the author or the character. Could I just pick a character if the character is a king? That's funny. Let's see. Do I have any authors who have the last name King? That's K-E. Ooh, I do. Okay, perfect. Let me grab it. Let's see which one. I'm going to pick this one. I have not read this one yet, but I think it's the prettier out of the two. So this is A Thorn in Every Heart by Kate King, is the author. And I picked this one. I haven't read this one. I read the first book in her Wild Fae series. But what's cool, I got to meet Kate King and get those books signed, this one and the first book in the Wild Fae series signed when I went to Villains and Vixens in September of last year. That was a lot of fun. And it's got, this one is a fairy tale retelling. It's the first book in the Enchanted Legacies series. It says, what if Belle never returned to the Enchanted Castle? So I guess it is a twist on Beauty and the Beast, which I love. So yes, this is the book I'm going to go with for that prompt. We're getting close to the end. I've got this one plus 2 more before reading the final prompt, which will choose our book. All right, next, look at the page number and find a book with the inverse number of pages. Okay. This book, I'm going to be really careful too not to spoil myself since I haven't read this one. All right, the last page number is 385. So 583, or as close to 583 as I can get. That shouldn't be too hard because a lot of the books I read are around 500 pages. So let's just, let's see. Let's try to pick one that I kind of know is around 500 pages. Nope, that's only 480. This might take me a second, so if it takes me a long time, I will fast forward through it. Let's see, 600. So I wonder if this one, because it's a little bit shorter. No, those are, do we count? Let's see, 507. So not quite. Let's see. This one's in there really tight. Let's see. 512. Okay, this one is a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. I pulled this one, but I think it might have been, not counting like the bonus content. This is about 550. Okay, this is a little bit harder. I know that one was way more. Okay, please hold again while I find a book that will match this prompt. Okay, I am back. That took way more time than it should have. I ended up having to go onto Goodreads to help me with this prompt, and even Goodreads was letting me down because the number of pages it said didn't match the additions that I had. And it was really hard to tell because page thickness sometimes makes shorter books seem longer or look longer, and longer books look shorter. But as close as I can get with 587 pages is Jade War by Fonda Lee. This is the second book in the Green Bone saga. This is another fantasy series that I'm enjoying that I just need to read the last book, but I heard the last book is going to break me, and so I'm a little bit scared to finish the series, but I need to get to it sooner rather than later before I forget too much. Because I feel like that's what happened when between reading book 1 and book 2, I think I let over a year go by. And so I feel like I didn't appreciate this one as much as I could have had I done it more quickly. So this is the closest page number that I could get to that 583, without pulling all the books off of my shelf. Like I said, sometimes the prompts that you think are going to be the easiest end up being the hardest ones. All right, find another book with the same genre. So this is like fantasy, it's got a little bit of romance in it, but it's not like the main plot. So this is one of my like more higher fantasy or epic fantasy series that I am in. And so I am going to pick something similar. So a fantasy with a little bit of romance, like subplot. And I think I have just it. I'm going to have to step off to get it. I'm going to put this one down, and that is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is another like fantasy series that I am currently reading. I am about in the middle. I read the first 3, so I need to read book 4 and book 5, and then I'll be up to date on this series. And so yeah, this one is fantasy, and it's also like urban fantasy because it's set in like London, whereas the Jade War is set like in an Asian setting. It's not real world, but this one is, but it is urban, and there is a little bit of a romantic subplot, but it is not like anything major to the main plot of this. So that's what I am going to pick for that prompt. We have our last one here before we get to the final prompt that will pick our book. This one says, find a book with a similar cover. Okay, a similar cover. So it is, there's like buildings and kind of like foiling, and the title is central to the cover. Oh my goodness, something that's similar to this without picking like just the next book in the series, because I don't want to do that. It is like red and blue toned, so I can go with that. Oh my goodness, this is hard, and I'm just kind of looking around and thinking about books that might kind of fit in the same vein. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I think I'm gonna go with this one. So this is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, and the reason why I'm picking this is because it's got like this gold, like shiny gold. I wouldn't necessarily say foiling, and neither is that one, but it's like a shiny gold, and it's got like the red and like buildings in the background. And so I'm going to go with this one. I have not read this one yet. And ooh, the end pages are like a map. That's pretty. This is a Barnes & Noble exclusive. I don't know if they ever did like the second book as a Barnes & Noble exclusive, but I wasn't really eager to pick it up until I read this one. But then like, I get intimidated. I want to read all the chunky books, but then I get intimidated. So yeah, so this is going to be the book that decides what my next read is going to be, because the last prompt says, turn to page 25, point to a random word, and that word has to be in the title of your next read. And Chelsea did say that you can do this as many times as you need to. And I know that that it is probably, I don't know why I'm like not looking at the page, because I do have to turn specifically to page 25. I'm just nervous. I don't want, I guess page 25, I can't get too spoiled, can I? All right, page 25. And now is when I don't look. I'm just going to pick a random word. Now I'm going to have to do this again because the word I'm pointing to is Sarthian. And first of all, I don't know what that is. I imagine it's probably something that has to do with this book specifically. And I'm just kind of looking. Look, it's got the name Kel. That was funny because like one of the characters in Mistborn, which I had to put away, the character's name was Kel or Kelsier, but they called him Kel. And I couldn't use that book to help me find the author's name. All right, chopped. Yeah, no, I'm gonna pick another one because I can't even think, unless like a cooking romance, which I know I don't have any of those on my shelf. So I'm gonna thick-necked. I don't think I'm gonna find a title with thick-necked on it either. Let's pick something closer to the top. Woman. The book title that's coming to mind is Local Woman Missing, which I have read and do not own. So it's like so irrelevant. Woman. Woman. I do not think I have any books that have woman in the title. So let's see if I might have to pick another book. If I don't, I'm going to do this a few more. Black bearded man. Maybe if I can't, I can go with black. I probably have a title with black. Or gladiator. I do have to say, Cassandra Clare, I've never read any books by her, but she has quite, a variety of words that I'm pointing to these character names that have like no meaning in another character. Okay, last time. We're going to go with black if this one doesn't stick. Daring. Or black. Why is this so hard? Black. I can think of titles that might, but I'm not. I don't think I have anything that comes to mind that's on my shelf. Okay. I'm going to open up my Goodreads and see if I have any books that have black in the title. And if not, I'm going to choose a different book with a cover that is similar to The Bone Season. So please hold. Okay, I am back. I did have to look on Goodreads, and I do have one book on my shelf that has black in the title that I have not read, and that is White Horse Black Knights by Evie Marceau. And this is a special edition that I got from somewhere. It doesn't have a slip cover, so I'm guessing it's probably Moonlight. Yes, I can see the Moonlight. So this is from Moonlight Book Box. I did not keep this subscription for a very long time because I don't know, a lot of the books were just not books that I was excited about. Ooh, I hope you didn't see that. That's pretty spicy end page there. Let me see if I can show you. No, I cannot, because she is not wearing any clothes, and I don't know a whole lot about this book, except for I think maybe the male main character shifts into this horse and gets stuck or something. I don't know. So I would cross the gods 10 realms on hands and knees for you. I don't know a whole lot about this book. It must be first in the series because it has a 1 on it. And so we shall see how this goes, because this is the book that I will be reading for this scavenger hunt vlog. I'm sorry if you can hear that. That is my son. He is, you know, traveling throughout the apartment. So yeah, not really the book that I was expecting to pick up, but one that I needed to get to anyways, because it is like a goal of mine to read my books that I've gotten from subscription services to see if I want to keep them on my shelf or not. And as far as I know, I do not know if Moonlight ever continued on with the series or if this series has even come out with the second book. Oh, yep, here. It's the May 2025. Probably, did I have it 2024 or 2025? one of those 2 years, I don't even know. Like I said, I did not keep this subscription for very long because I think out of the 6 months or so that I actually received books from, there was only one that I was excited about. And I know that they've come out with other books that I've enjoyed. Like I know that they recently did Smoke and Scar, but I already have Smoke and Scar, like the indie version that I got signed by Gretchen Powell Fox when I met her in Villains and Vixens. And so it was just, you know, not a subscription service that I was excited to continue receiving, even though they do make really pretty book editions that are, you know, all of the cover work and foiling is just on naked hardcover. So we will read this throughout the next few days, and I will check in with you once I know a little bit more about this book. About 10% into the book White Horse Black Knights, and I just want to start by saying that when I was talking about this book earlier, when I was doing the scavenger hunt, the little bit that I said that I knew about this book was actually from a different book. I was thinking of Behooved, which is written by M. Stevenson. So obviously I knew absolutely nothing about this book, but I have done a little bit of research and realized that the synopsis was on the back of this card. So I'm gonna put this down. I'm just gonna read the synopsis really quickly, and then I'm just gonna give my thoughts about the first 10%. It says, "We still worship the sleeping fae, though their magic only remains within a few of us. Locked away for 12 years, Sabine Darrow's only friends are animals she communicates with using magic. Now sold as a bride to a villainous High Lord, her greatest fear is trading one prison for another. But a potential escape lies in the form of her gruff yet achingly handsome guard, whose loyalty she is determined to break. A huntsman with heightened senses, Bastin Wolf Bowborn, has more important things to do than transport his master's new bride. With ancient creatures reawakening along the kingdom's border wall, he is torn between his duty and his desire to investigate, until a forbidden attraction becomes an unyielding obsession. Welcome to Astagnan, a kingdom of cruel games and corrupted courts, where the only thing more dangerous than the secret slumbering underground is falling for the one person you can't have." Okay, so in this book, we do have an arranged marriage. Sabine has been locked away in a convent for the last 12 years. In the 10% that I read, which is the first 4 chapters, yeah, because I'm on chapter 5. The first 4 chapters, we learned that her father is Lord of the village that she is from, and he is not a great guy. He has a lot of gambling debts and like a drinking problem, and he does sell his daughter to Lord Ryan. I don't remember his name. It starts with an R. Let me see if I can find it real quickly. But this Lord that she's been sold, Lord Ryan, the Lord that she's been sold off to has a reputation. He runs a lot of vice houses in the village where he lives, and kind of is known for like collecting what is called the God's Kiss. And a God's Kiss is a person who was born with a sun-shaped birthmark on their body, and they inherit some kind of like magical power. And Sabine is God's Kiss. She has the power to talk to animals. And the wolf, the bodyguard who was sent to collect her to bring her to her future husband, he is God's Kiss with heightened senses, and he has been named the huntsman of where he is taking her. He's like the official huntsman. And so he, is very big, very gruff, very handsome man. Of course, she's instantly attracted to him. But like I said, she's been locked away for like the past 12 years in a convent where she was not treated well by the nuns there. In this world, they worship the, they're called immortals, they're called gods, they're called fae, they're kind of called all sorts of different things. And it's explained that like kind of depending on where you live in this world is what you call them. But they've been asleep for about 1,000 years, and they, pay tribute and worship these immortal or gods by, wearing their hair a certain way, or wearing certain makeup, and wearing, like ear caps to make their ears pointed like the fae. And the convent where she has spent the past 12 years worships the goddess of virtue, Ire, Ire the maiden. And the nuns there, they don't treat her well and kind of kept her imprisoned instead of like living, with the rest of them and everything. So she's glad to escape, but it's like she's leaving from one bad situation to another. And the man that she's going to marry, it seems to be very cruel because he insists that she is brought to him on her horse, completely free of any kind of clothing. Like she cannot wear, it says no shift, no chemise, no dress. She cannot wear anything. So she has to travel from her home to his home completely in the nude, barebacked on her horse, because it's paying tribute to the goddess named Selene, the wilder woman who is goddess of nature. And it's like in their lore, this goddess, arrived to her husband and kind of like, said, I am here to serve you. And he expects her to, kind of reenact that legend. And so like just in this first 10%, it's like, it seems like pretty dark, like a lot darker than what I was expecting going into this, because like, as she's riding through and men are out on the streets, like taunting her and leering at her and throwing things at her. And she has to just kind of, take it all. As she's riding through, she kind of like chants in her head. Let me see if I can find exactly what she says. I can't find it, but it's like she keeps chanting to herself, like, you can have my body, but I will still have my mind. And she makes reference to where her body has not been her own, like for as long as she can remember. She has no autonomy with her body. She was abused by the people who were supposed to care for her in the convent, and now she's going to be forced to marry a man who she fears is going to be abusive to her as well. Even though her guard, Wolf, keeps saying, you know, you will have everything that you want. He will give you anything your heart desires, just so long as you keep him happy. And so I'm hoping that she, you know, kind of, you know, when things get bad, that it's going to be, you know, like enough is enough, and that we get to see some really good feminine rage in here, because I feel like the author is really laying the groundwork for that to happen. But like I said, I'm pretty early on. I've only read 2 chapters from each character's point of view. But we do know that it is going to be a forbidden romance. That's one of the tropes, because I'm assuming that she and Wolf are going to fall for each other. So it'll be a forbidden romance, like bodyguard situation, which, you know, I'm always down to read about. And so, you know, 10% in, and I'm liking what I've read so far. And I hope that, you know, what I'm feeling kind of continues, and that I get to see those themes that I am hoping to see in this book. I will check back in with you when I get to about maybe halfway through the book. So I am now 50% into White Horse Black Knights. I did switch over to my Kindle because I found out that the whole series is on Kindle Unlimited. So I decided to put my special edition down and pick up the Kindle. And some information that I found out about it, like I said, it is on Kindle Unlimited. It is, as of right now, a 4-book series, the 4th book having just come out in January. Whether this series is completed or not, I'm not sure. But there are 4 books in the series, and all 4 of them are on Kindle Unlimited. And I am also listening to the audio through my library with the Hoopla app. So that's been helping me get through this book, because not a whole lot has happened up to this point. So I am 50% in, which is about I'm a little over 200 pages, just past the 50% mark. And up to this point, they have been traveling, you know, from her village to his village this whole entire time. And in between, you know, chapters, like they'll mention every now and then that a day or 2 has passed. And we only get to see like glimpses of when things happen. Like she attempted to escape and some things happened, and they passed through a village and were confronted by some priests from a temple of another god that, you know, wanted to kind of take her with them because she was not virtuous. They said she wasn't virtuous, and that she was, you know, like they wanted to condemn her basically. And so he had to protect her from that situation. And all the while they are kind of like, you know, I'm attracted to you, but I hate you, but something happened, and so I'm going to protect you and show you my softer side. So we are getting glimpses of that up to this point. And where I stopped, they have stopped in a village along the way, and, you know, to stay the night in an inn so that she can kind of clean herself, because at this point they've been on the road for like 2 weeks, and they're getting closer to where their destination. And she was saying, you know, well, you need to take me to this inn so that I can get clean, so that I'm, you know, nice and presentable to my future husband. All the while she kind of has ulterior motives, because we find out that she, when she's living in the convent, she has fallen for the guy who, funnily enough, is the person who castrates the goats for their convent. And she thinks she's in love with him, even though she's only spent like 1 day with him. And they had plans for her to run away and meet up with him, and they would, you know, run away together. And so she kind of has come to terms with the fact that she's not going to be able to escape from Wolf and meet up with him. And so she wants to send a message because she's able to communicate with animals. And so she wanted to send a message using one of the birds, that just happened to be by. And so they're stopped at this inn, and he's being really nice to her. He, makes sure that she gets a hot bath. He even buys her clothes so that she doesn't have to be, bare all the time or just wearing his shirt, which has gotten, quite filthy on their travels. And there's, of course, only one bed and everything. And she is like, we've been, sleeping together or close to each other every night when we camp. So you can just come sleep in the bed with me. It's going to be fine. But when that happens, they kind of get into a conversation of their attraction for each other. But he's, he is truly loyal to his Lord, and he's honor bound. And so he's like, it doesn't matter if I'm attracted to you because you're not for me. You're not meant for me. You're meant for him. And she kind of twists it where it's like, well, I've never been with a man. Will you just teach me what I need to do? And so a little bit of, a steamy scene happens. There's no, he doesn't do anything with her, but he kind of like talks her through, and she's getting all hot and bothered and everything. But then some things happen to where they have to flee from the inn in the middle of the night, and she has gotten herself captured. And all the while, as they've been separated, Wolf finds out from like a spy who was kind of attacking him when he was trying to rescue somebody he knew at the inn. He finds out that this group of people from a like cursed kingdom that they haven't had any contact with for like 500 years has been searching for God's kissed women within a certain age range and like who have similar looks to Sabine. And so now we're coming kind of into this mystery of like, who are these people? What do they want with people who look like her? Is she the one that they're searching for, and why? All the while, he's coming across animals that have been like not seen, like mythical creatures that haven't been seen for like 1,000 years that have ties to these people of the cursed kingdom. And so a little bit of like a mystery is starting to unfold where it comes to that. But like I said, so at this point where I stopped, she has just gotten captured, and he's realizing that she's been captured. And so he is now set off to find her so that he can rescue her. And that's about all that's really happened in, 200 pages. Like I said, it's been a lot of just traveling and them kind of, having that like push and pull tension between the two of them. And it's, I'm not hating it, but I'm kind of glad that now things are starting to pick up and like the plot is, starting to roll along. Because up until this point, it's just been them on a journey to get from point A to point B. Something that I thought was interesting when I was looking at the synopsis on Goodreads was that it says that it has like influenced by Snow White, which I am not really seeing at this point. I'm kind of actually more feel along the lines of Tangled with Rapunzel and the horse. Is his name Maximus? I cannot remember. It's been such a long time since I've seen that movie. But how they kind of have like a connection to each other and kind of like hate Flynn at first, but then like they slowly start to warm, like the horse starts to warm up to him. And that's kind of what we're seeing up to this point with Sabine and her horse that she's had, all since she was a child. I think the horse actually belonged to her deceased mother. And so it's interesting because like now Wolf and the horse are having to work together to rescue Sabine. And I'm seeing that kind of connection, but like up to this point, I'm not really making any kind of connection to Snow White, but like maybe we'll see, maybe the second half of the book will start to pull in some Snow White elements to it. I guess the only thing that I really could make a connection is that he's a huntsman and there is a huntsman in Snow White. But as far as, anything else that's really Snow White, I'm not seeing that connection. But it also said that it was influenced by Lady Godiva, like the legend of Lady Godiva, which I totally can see. I did a little bit of research because I've heard of Lady Godiva, but not really knowing the history behind it. And apparently Lady Godiva was a woman back in, hundreds of years ago in England who actually rode through the town without her clothes on a horse in protest of her husband, like who was taxing the people. And so she didn't want him doing that. And so she rode through the town, in the nude, which she is having to do. So I definitely see that connection there. But also said that that's where the phrase peeping Tom comes from because, as legends are told and stories are told and passed down, things get added to it. And what I read on Google said that the element of a peeping Tom was added into the story. And that's where that phrase comes from. It's because somebody, I guess Tom, went outside because everybody had shuttered their windows and everything. And he went outside and I guess was struck down or something. But I had to chuckle because I didn't know it at the time because I didn't do this research until after I got to 50%. But as she was leaving her home, her stepmother had commented that she, had told all of the people of her village to shutter their windows and to stay inside, stay off the street so that she could, ride out of their village without being looked upon in her state of undress. And as they're going through, people were staying true to their word to honor that request, except for a man named Tom who came out and he was kind of like noted as like the town's like, unsavory person, I guess, lack for a better term. And his name was Tom, Thom, but Tom, like short for Thomas. And that people were saying, have you no decency, come out. We were asked to not look at her in the state of undress. And he was just kind of like, well, if she's riding through the streets, I'm going to look at her. And so I, thought that was interesting that since, her situation was tied to the Lady Godiva and that peeping Tom came from that story and that Evie Marceau threw in that element into it. I thought that was really interesting. And I kind of wish that I had known that going in before reading the book because I feel like I could have appreciated that a little bit more, but I still appreciate it. So I am not sure if I'm going to continue reading today because it is about dinner time. And I have been watching Bridgerton and I'm like on episode 5 or 6 of Bridgerton, season 4 that I kind of want to get to. I have the house to myself this weekend. My son is with his dad this weekend. And so I can kind of watch the shows that I can't really watch while, he's around. So I think I might just, kind of tuck in for the evening and watch an episode or 2 of Bridgerton. And if I'm feeling like it, I might read a little bit more, but if not, I will just continue on tomorrow. And I probably will not check back in with you again until I have finished to give you my final thoughts. It is the next day and I have finished White Horse Black Knight. When I left off yesterday, I was feeling hopeful because we were coming close to the end of their travels together. The plot seemed to be picking up. And so I was, hopeful that I was going to start enjoying this book a lot more than I was feeling yesterday when I stopped reading for the day. And sadly, it did not get any better for me. In fact, I feel like it went downhill. And the reason I say this is yes, a lot of things happen in the second half of the book. Wolf rescues Sabine. There's a big fight scene where he rescues her, and in the midst of it all, they both come to terms with their feelings for each other, and they realize, yes, I do love this person, and this is the person that I want to be with for the rest of my life. And they profess their love for each other, and they have a night together. where they are finally able to, be together the way that they have wanted to, as their feelings for each other has grown. But then immediately following that, Wolf gets a letter from Sabine's father saying that, this the people of this, cursed kingdom who we haven't, had any connection with in the past 500 years, they are searching specifically for Sabine, and you must protect her at all costs. And it kind of clicks in Wolf's head that, like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I have put Sabine's life in jeopardy. And so, I need to put my feelings aside and stick to the original plan of bringing her to her fiance because he's the only person who can protect her. And instead of telling her this, he, does that whole switch in personality where it's like, oh, forget what I said last night. I can have any woman I want. You're no big deal. You're just another notch in my belt, which, understandably really angers Sabine. So they go back to this I hate you, I hate you even though I want you relationship with each other. And he brings her back, brings her to her intended and everything. And when she gets to her new home, she starts to hear this voice inside her head that keeps telling her to get out, get out, get out. And she thinks that the house where she's living, that I don't know if it's a castle or a keep or whatever, she thinks that it's haunted. And so, the next maybe 20 to 30% of the book is just Sabine and Wolf, playing the whole I hate you, I want you, I hate you, I want you game again. So it's like they've gone backwards, um, instead of forwards in their relationship together. Um, Between Wolf and Lord Rianne, her fiance, it becomes like a big eggplant swinging contest with each other. And it's just, it's so immature. And yes, I know that these are young characters, but like even just the writing, like it just kind of felt like a slap in the face to me because the next thing that I want to talk about is just how uncomfortable I was with the writing in this book. And so what I mean is, we would have these moments where the writing was really beautiful and like flowery and just poetic and everything. And then in the next paragraph, a character would speak and just be like, oh, well, that dumb idiot. And it was just jarring. It's like, it would, I wouldn't even say like ebb and flow because it was just, it would go to like this really, and, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it was just jarring that it would be so like, oh, that was nice. And then like normal, like current slang and like the way that they would talk to each other. And so it was just really inconsistent for me. And so it's just never really sat comfortable with me. Another thing, like kind of talked about like the miscommunication, when he finds out that her life is in danger and everything. And instead of just saying, hey, this is what I found out, I don't really enjoy the miscommunication trope. And so when this one showed up and it was just, instead of being mature adults, we have to now resort to these immature games with each other, just didn't sit well with me. And then the thing that really kind of ticked me off the most, and this is kind of where I just started to be like, okay, let's just finish the book so that I have something to talk about, was when she and Wolf arrive to their village and she's riding through the streets. And up to this point, he offered to say, well, hey, let's just put you in some clothes, forget the fact that you're supposed to, arrive undressed and everything, because that was like um the agreement in this engagement. He's like, let's just let you ride in clothes for the rest of the way. And she was like, no, I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you. I hate you. So I'm just going to continue to ride without my clothes on, um, just to spite you. And so as they're getting closer and closer, different winged animals, because remember, she can communicate with animals. So different winged animals like moths and butterflies and birds and fireflies and all of these winged creatures start flocking to her and kind of clothe her, like create a covering for her. So by the time she rides into the village where she is going to marry this lord, she is seems to be clothed, but she is clothed in nature, which, kind of ticks off her fiance, because he's like, you were not supposed to come to me wearing any clothing and you're defying me and everything. But, anyways, as she's riding into the town, you can really tell that he has kind of like cleaned up the streets and everything, because if I had mentioned earlier, he and his family own all of like the vice houses in where they live, and it's known, the town that they live in is known as Sinner's Haven. And as she's riding through, she's making note of, like, the streets are so clean and the people are so, happy and seem to be well off. And if this is called Sinner's Haven, where is all the sin? I was expecting to see, people in the streets who were drunk, who were, women of the evening and things like that. And she makes a comment where it said, women of any color could ride a man's you know what. And that just really made me stop and like go back, and it's like, wait a minute, did I just read what I thought I read? So up until this point, like, skin color or anything like that has never been mentioned. And so why, like, 70 to 75% into this book, why is that a comment being made? Like, why is it considered sinful to have a physical, act with somebody of a different skin color? And why did that comment have to be made? I feel like at that point, I was just kind of like, mm-mm-mm. I don't think so. This day and age, this book was written in 2023. We know better. Why was this comment even made when nothing about that has been said up to this point? And it was just kind of like thrown in there. And I really feel like that was not necessary to the story. It was not, it's just not necessary in today's, it's not necessary. If it has nothing to do with the context of the book, why do we have comments like that in our books? And so from then, I was just kind of like, all right, we're just going to power through. We're going to finish this book. But I was kind of up to this point was thinking this is a 3-star book, but it's not anymore. So basically, after that point, I missed a lot of information, a lot of Wolf's thoughts. It just turned into like just lustful internal dialogue. And just, instead of saying, I asked her how her day was, he has to have some kind of lustful thought in it. And it's just, I don't know, it wasn't good. Um, and from the rest of the book, it was just kind of like a lot of setup for book 2. Nothing was really resolved, and I don't even care to find out what is going to happen in the rest of the story. I did finish the book, even though I probably should have DNF'd after that one comment was made. But I am definitely DNFing the series and am unhauling my special edition book of this. In fact, I put it on Pango earlier this morning, probably around the time that I just was just like, nope, this book is not for me. This writer is probably not for me. I don't know if I even want to try out any other of her books, because she does have other series that she has written. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Um, but all of that being said, this is a 2-star for me. Um, which I could have DNF'd and been fine with, but just for the sake of this vlog, I did want to finish to see if it did have anything to redeem itself, but sadly it did not. And so that is the end of this reading vlog, my very first reading vlog. I hope that you enjoyed watching me struggle through the scavenger hunt to find this book. Even though it ended up not being a win for me, I had a lot of fun choosing the book and just, sitting down and thinking out my thoughts on the book, and feeling like when I started my channel going into this saying like, I probably would not ever do a reading vlog. I'm glad that I did. Now, am I going to start doing regular reading vlogs? Probably not. But if, the right inspiration comes along to do something like this again, I definitely will. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video for sticking through this ride with me, and I appreciate you. If you, let's see, if you get to the end of this video and want to just leave an emoji because you don't have anything else to say, leave me a horse emoji. I don't know if there is a horse emoji, but if there is, leave me a horse emoji. If there is not, you can leave me like a mouse, because there is a mouse on the cover, and there are a few instances where a mouse is, kind of like helps her out of situations. So either a horse or a mouse emoji, just to let me know that you were here. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.